I spent 10 years building a life so boring that no one would ever look at me twice. Then my brother asked to borrow my laptop for 20 minutes to print a resume. And I said yes, just to stop the guilt. That single hesitation cost me everything. When the agents pounded on my door 3 weeks later, I realized my family hadn't just invaded my privacy, they had framed me for a crime I didn't even know existed. My life was built on the architecture of the boring. I liked it that way. I curated the mundane the way other people curated art collections or vintage wines. At 33 years old, I had achieved a state of existence that most people would find suffocatingly dull. But for me, it was oxygen. I worked for Northbridge Lane Solutions, a mid-tier logistics technology firm that sat in a glass and steel cube in an office park that looked exactly like every other office park in East Briar, Pennsylvania. My job title was Senior Compliance Analyst. When people asked me at dinner parties what I did, I told them I checked boxes to make sure shipping containers didn't violate interstate commerce laws. Usually, their eyes glazed over before I finished the sentence, and they would wander off to find more interesting conversation. That was the point. I was the person who ensured that Clause 4 Section B matched the vendor onboarding manifest. I was the person who flagged that a certificate of insurance had expired 3 days ago. I was the person who kept the chaos of the world neatly arranged in rows and columns. I love the rows. I love the columns. I love the conditional formatting in Excel that turned a cell a soft pastel green when a formula balanced perfectly. Green meant safe. Green meant nobody was going to get sued. Nobody was going to get fired. And nobody was going to look at me with disappointment in their eyes. It was a Friday afternoon in late October when I closed my laptop, a sleek company-issued machine that contained the entirety of my professional life. I packed it into my waterproof messenger bag, checking twice to make sure the charger was coiled correctly. I was meticulous. My apartment was meticulous. My credit score was 810. I had never received a speeding ticket. I had never missed a loan payment. I was the adult. I was the reliable one. I was driving out to Maple Hollow for the weekend. It was only 45 minutes away from my apartment in East Briar. But the psychological distance was measured in light years. Maple Hollow was where I grew up, a suburb that had seen better days, filled with houses that were slightly too large for the lots they sat on, and lawns that were fighting a losing battle against crabgrass. My mother, Diane, had called me 3 times that week. The tone was always the same. Casual, breezy, but with that underlying frequency that only a daughter can hear. The sound of a problem waiting to be solved. She wanted to know if I was coming for dinner. She wanted to know if I could look at the thermostat because it was making a clicking noise. She wanted to know if I had heard from Evan. Evan was my younger brother. He was 29, charming, handsome, and entirely allergic to stability, while I was building a fortress of spreadsheets. Evan was chasing opportunities. He had been a personal trainer, a crypto enthusiast, a dropshipping entrepreneur, and recently, something vague involving social media management. I loved him, but I loved him the way you love a large, untrained dog in a room full of crystal vases. You were always waiting for the crash. I pulled into the driveway of my parents' house just as the sun was dipping below the tree line. The house looked tired. The gutters needed cleaning. My father, Martin, was in the garage, tinkering with a lawnmower that hadn't worked properly since 2015. He waved at me, a greasy rag in his hand, his smile gentle and apologetic. He was a good man, but he had spent 40 years letting life happen to him rather than making choices. I went inside. The smell hit me first, a mix of lemon pledge, pot roast, and stale cigarette smoke that my mother tried to hide with scented candles. "Claire, you made it," my mother said, coming out of the kitchen. She wiped her hands on a dish towel. "You look tired. Are you eating enough? You look pale." "I am fine." "Mom," I said, leaning in for the hug. Her body felt tense, vibrating with that nervous energy I had spent my childhood trying to smooth over. "I eat plenty. Work is just busy. It is always busy," she said, pulling back to inspect me. You work too hard. You should meet someone. Have you met anyone? I haven't met anyone. I said, I am happy with my job. She sighed, a sound that contained volumes of disappointment. Well, go put your bag down. Evan is here. I froze halfway to the stairs. Evan is here? He came by for laundry, she said, turning back to the stove. And he has some big news, a new job prospect, real corporate stuff this time. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the sensation of being the designated safety net. If Evan was here, and he had news, it usually meant he needed money, or a cosigner, or a character reference. I went upstairs to my old bedroom, which had been converted into a guest room that still held the ghosts of my teenage years. I set my messenger bag on the desk. I hesitated. Usually, I left my laptop in the bag. Zipped tight, Northbridge Lane had strict policies about device security. We dealt with supply chains, vendor data, tax IDs. It was not classified government intel, but it was proprietary. I unzipped the bag. I just wanted to check one email before dinner. I opened the laptop, typed in my 16-character passphrase, and watched the desktop load. My background was a generic blue wave. My folders were arranged in a grid. Everything was where I left it. I checked my inbox. Nothing urgent. And shut the lid. When I went downstairs, Evan was at the kitchen table, devouring a roll. He looked good. I had to admit, he had that shine to him, the kind of charisma that made people want to say yes to him before they even knew what he was asking. Claire Bear, he shouted, grinning. Look at you. Professional lady, corporate killer. Hi, Evan, I said, sitting opposite him. Mom says you have news. Big news, he said. I am pivoting. No more hustles. I am getting into logistics consulting. Supply chain optimization. It is a huge growth sector. I blinked. Logistics? Evan, you do not know anything about logistics. I am a quick learner, he said, dismissing my concern with a wave of his hand. And I have a guy I met, Miles. He says I have the right profile for vendor relations. I just need to get my resume polished up. He wants it on his desk by Monday morning. That is great, I said, trying to sound encouraging. I really hope it works out. It will, he said. Actually, that is kind of why I was waiting for you. Here it comes. I thought, my laptop cord is frayed, Evan said, and Mom's printer is out of ink. Like always, I need to print this resume and a cover letter to bring to the interview. Can I just borrow your laptop for 20 minutes? I just need to pull the file from my cloud and send it to the printer in the den. Dad says he put a new cartridge in that one. I felt the automatic no rising in my throat. I cannot. Evan, it is a work machine. It has encryption software. I am not supposed to let anyone else use it. Diane turned from the stove, the spatula in her hand like a weapon. Oh, for heaven's sake. Claire, it is your brother. He is not a Russian spy. He just needs to print a piece of paper. It is against policy. Mom, I said, hating how weak my voice sounded. Policy, she scoffed. You are always so rigid. He is trying to get a job. He is trying to be responsible. Like you always tell him to be. Help him out. I looked at Evan. He gave me a puppy dog look, wide-eyed and innocent. Claire, seriously, I will not touch anything. I just need to log into my email. Hit print and log out. I will do it right in front of you if you want. I looked at my father, who had come in from the garage. He was washing his hands at the sink. He caught my eye in the reflection of the window and gave a tiny, imperceptible shrug. He wasn't going to save me. I sighed. Fine. But do not close any of my windows, and do not download anything. You are the best, Evan said. Jumping up, I will be quick. I walked upstairs with him. I opened the laptop. I typed in the password. I watched him open a browser window. I watched him navigate to his email. I am going to go help Mom with the salad. I said, bring it down when you are done. Do not leave it unattended. I know. Strictly confidential. He teased. Go. I will be down in 10 minutes. I walked downstairs, the anxiety humming under my skin like a low-voltage wire. It was fine. It was just a resume. He was my brother. We shared DNA. He wouldn't do anything to hurt me. He was annoying. He was irresponsible. But he wasn't malicious. Dinner was tense. Diane talked about the neighbors and their divorce. Martin ate silently. Evan was high on the adrenaline of his new prospect, talking about salary caps and commission structures that sounded completely made up. After dinner, Evan handed me the laptop. It was warm. "Thanks, sis," he said. "You are a lifesaver." I took it upstairs immediately. I sat at the desk and opened the lid. The screen came to life. The browser was closed. My email was still open. Everything looked normal. I clicked on the file explorer. Just a reflex. I wanted to make sure he hadn't saved his resume to my desktop. I checked the quick access menu. There, at the top of the list, was a folder labeled basic_work. My heart stuttered. That folder wasn't on the desktop. It was buried 3 levels deep in my documents, under a folder named archive_2025 and another named vendor_templates. It contained exactly what the name suggested: basic, sanitized templates of our rate cards, blank vendor onboarding forms, and some old training manuals I had written for new hires. It was boring stuff, public-facing stuff, mostly, but the date-modified column said today, 7:42 p.m. I stared at the timestamp. 7:42 was when we were eating pot roast. Evan had come down at 7:50. I opened the folder, the files inside, ratecard_template_v4.x, lsx, and vendor_intake_form.docx, had not been modified. Their timestamps were months old, but the folder itself had been accessed. I sat there, the cursor hovering over the folder icon. Why would he look in there? Did he stumble on it? Was he looking for a template for his own resume? That had to be it. He said he was applying for a logistics job. Maybe he just wanted to see what a logistics document looked like. I could go downstairs. I could ask him, "Evan, why were you looking at my work files?" I imagined the scene. Diane would throw her hands up. There she goes again. The paranoid prosecutor, accusing her brother of stealing when he was just looking for inspiration. Evan would get defensive. I didn't mean to. I just clicked the wrong thing. God. Claire, chill out. I didn't have the energy. I was so tired. I wanted the weekend to be over. I wanted to go back to my quiet apartment and my quiet life. It was nothing. I whispered to the empty room. He probably just double-clicked by accident. I closed the laptop. I shoved the feeling down, deep into the box where I kept all the other times I had swallowed my discomfort to keep the peace. I left the next morning. I made an excuse about needing to prep for Monday. I couldn't stay in that house another minute. The drive back to East Briar was uneventful, but the knot in my stomach didn't loosen. When I got into my apartment, I made a cup of tea. Earl Grey, precise temperature. I sat on my beige sofa and opened the laptop again. I needed to work. I had an audit coming up. Tracy, my manager, had been stressing about the quarterly business review. I needed to update the master vendor list. I navigated to my active projects folder. I opened the spreadsheet labeled master_vendor_list_q. 4.xlsx. Excel opened. The green grid appeared. But something was wrong. Usually, when I opened this file, the cursor was in cell A1. Always. I was obsessive about saving it that way. The cursor was in cell J450. I frowned. Had I been working on row 450 on Friday? I couldn't remember. I scrolled up. The data looked fine. Vendor names, tax IDs, shipping routes. Then I saw it. In the column for shipping lane origin, usually, the data was formatted as city, state, one of the cells, row 200, just said expedited. I stared at it. I never used that term in the origin column. I clicked on the cell. The formula bar showed the text was typed in manually. I corrected it. Memphis, Tennessee. I saved the file. Maybe I was more tired on Friday than I thought. I closed the file. I noticed a small icon in my system tray. The Cloud Sync icon. It was spinning. I clicked it. Syncing 4 files. I watched the list. Copy of master underscore vendor underscore list dot xlsx. Rate card underscore template underscore v4 1 xlsx. Duplicate files. I felt a cold prickle on the back of my neck. I opened my cloud drive settings. Under connected devices, there was my laptop. Claire underscore NLS underscore latitude. There was my phone. Claire underscore pixel. And there was a third device. Generic underscore P NP underscore monitor. I stared at it. That wasn't a computer. That was a display driver. But why was it showing up as a connected device with sync access? I hovered over the disconnect button. My finger trembled. It's a glitch. I told myself, the system updated last week. IT sent that email about the new driver compatibility. It is just ghost data. I clicked remove device. It disappeared. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. You are being crazy. Claire, you are letting your mother's voice get in your head. It is a glitch. Monday morning. The office was freezing. It was always freezing. I sat at my desk, wrapped in a gray cardigan, staring at my dual monitors. Tracy Mullane walked by. She was a sharp woman, efficient, not unkind, but entirely devoid of warmth. She stopped at my cubicle. Claire. She said, "Good weekend?" "Quiet," I said. "Just how I like it." "Good," Tracy said. "We have the internal audit kickoff at 2 o'clock. And listen, corporate sent down a memo this morning. Apparently, there has been an uptick in phishing attempts targeting logistics firms. They are tightening the device policy. If you have any external drives or unapproved peripherals, get rid of them. They're going to be scanning ports." I felt a flush of heat go up my neck. I thought about Evan. I thought about the generic underscore PNP underscore monitor. I did not use any external drives. I said, "I know you didn't." Tracy said, "You are the only person on this team I don't worry about. You are airtight, Claire. That is why I rely on you." She walked away. The praise felt like a stone in my gut. Airtight. If she knew I had let my brother browse his email on my machine, I would be written up. If she knew I had seen a folder access I couldn't explain and didn't report it, I could be fired. But nothing happened. I thought, he printed a resume. The sync was a glitch. Do not make a problem where there is not one. My personal cell phone buzzed on my desk. I looked at the screen. Unknown number. Usually, I didn't answer unknown numbers, but I was expecting a call from my dentist about an appointment change. I picked it up. "Hello? Is this Claire Ward?" The voice was male, smooth, professional, not a robocall. "Yes, this is she." "Hi, Claire. My name is Julian. I'm calling from Brightwell Freight Consulting." I frowned. I didn't know a Brightwell Freight. "I'm sorry. I'm at work." I said, "I do not think we have a contract with you." "Oh, I am not calling for a contract," Julian said. His voice was casual, almost friendly. "I am actually looking at some vendor optimization data, and your name came up as the point of contact for the compliance checks on the mid-Atlantic lanes, specifically regarding the onboarding of new intermediaries." My hand tightened on the phone. My role was internal. My name wasn't on public vendor lists. Only approved partners had my direct line. And even then, they usually called my desk phone, not my personal cell. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "And how do you know my role?" Julian laughed. A soft, dry sound. "We have a database of industry experts. Claire, we are just doing some market research. I wanted to ask about the verification process for expedited shipments. Do you verify the subcarriers manually, or is it automated?" The question was specific, too specific. It was the kind of question an auditor asked, or a competitor. "I cannot discuss internal processes," I said, my voice hardening. "Please remove me from your list." I hung up. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Brightwell Freight. I typed it into Google on my work computer. 0 results. No website. No LinkedIn page. Maybe I misheard the name. Bright something. I tried to focus on my work. I opened the vendor onboarding queue. I had 3 new applications to review. I clicked on the first one. Suddenly, My screen went black. Then it flashed blue. A window popped up. A system notification from the Northbridge security client. Critical alert. Impossible travel detected. User ID. Quard_NLS. Login attempt. 10:42 a.m. Location, Shenzhen, CNN. I stared at the box. I was in East Briar, Pennsylvania. It was 10:42 in the morning. I could not be in China. I grabbed my mouse. I clicked Deny Access. The screen flickered. Password reset required. I was shaking now, visibly shaking. I looked around the office. Rena, the analyst in the next cubicle, was typing away, humming to herself. Tracy was in her glass office, on a call. Nobody was looking at me. I followed the prompts. I reset my password. I made it 20 characters long, a random string of letters and numbers that I wrote down on a sticky note and immediately shredded. It was a brute force attack. I told myself, someone got my email from a leak. It happens. The system caught it. The system works. But the timing, the call from Julian, the glitch with the monitor, the folder on Friday, it was all connected. It had to be. No, I thought, stop it. You are spiraling. The call was a recruiter using aggressive tactics. The login was a coincidence. Evan just printed a resume. I forced myself to work. I forced myself to sit there for 6 hours and check boxes. I was efficient. I was robotic. I didn't leave my desk for lunch. At 5 o'clock. I packed up. I needed to go home. I needed to sleep. I drove home in silence. I didn't listen to a podcast. I didn't listen to music. I just listened to the tires on the pavement. When I got to my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat on the couch in the dim gray of the evening. I pulled out my laptop. I had to check one more thing. I connected to my home Wi-Fi. I logged in with my new 20-character password. I opened Outlook. I wanted to see if there were any security notifications I had missed during the day. I clicked on the Sent Items folder. My stomach dropped through the floor. At the very top of the list was an email sent today. Time, 3:15 p.m. I was in a meeting at 3:15. My laptop was locked at my desk. The email had no subject line. It had no recipient in the to field. It was a draft that had been saved and then auto-saved. But there was an attachment. RATEC_SUMMARY_XLSX. I stared at the file name. That wasn't a file I worked on. I worked on the master vendor list. Rate card summary was a consolidated file. It was the kind of file that took bits and pieces from 20 different spreadsheets and stripped out the context, leaving just the raw data, routes, prices, vendor codes. I opened the attachment. It wasn't just my data. It was data from my basic_work folder, the templates, the training manuals. But they were filled in, and there were columns I didn't recognize. Columns with headers like bypass_fee and off_book_ref. I felt bile rise in my throat. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone had been on my computer. Someone had taken my boring, safe, compliant files and turned them into something else, and they had done it while I was sitting right there, proud of how airtight I was. I thought of Evan's smile. I just need to print a resume. I closed the laptop. The room was dark, but I didn't turn on the lamp. I sat in the dark, and for the first time in my life, the silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like a cage. Tuesday morning arrived with the gray, heavy persistence of a headache. I sat in my car in the Northbridge Lane Solutions parking garage for 15 minutes before I could force my legs to move. The concrete structure was cold, smelling of oil and damp dust. I stared at the elevator bank, clutching my messenger bag to my chest as if it contained a bomb. In a way, it did. I had spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the sequence of events, the favor, the login, the email draft, the unknown device. My brain, usually a well-oiled machine for processing compliance risks, was overheating. I kept trying to find the innocent explanation, the one where Evan was just an idiot and not a thief, but the logic wouldn't hold. I walked into the building, The lobby was bright, aggressively cheerful with its potted ferns and abstract art. I badged through the turnstile. Beep, green light, safe, not safe. I went straight to the IT help desk on the 4th floor. It was a glass-walled fishbowl where the support technicians sat amidst a tangle of Ethernet cables and discarded motherboards. I approached the counter. A young man named Kevin, who I had previously only spoken to when my printer driver failed, looked up. He was wearing a hoodie that said, "Code is poetry." "Hi, Kevin," I said. My voice sounded thin, brittle. "Hey, Claire," he said, spinning in his chair. "What is up? Toner cartridge again?" "No," I said. "I need to report a security concern." His smile didn't fade, but his eyes shifted. He sat up a little straighter. "Okay, what kind of concern? Phishing email?" I swallowed. I noticed some unusual activity on my account yesterday, a login location that was impossible, and some files in my sent folder that I didn't send. Kevin frowned. He pulled his keyboard closer. "Impossible login? Like, geographically?" "Yes." I said. "It said China." I reset my password immediately. But then I saw the email draft. He started typing, his fingers flying across the keys. The clacking sound seemed deafening in the quiet room. "Okay, let me pull up the logs." "What time was the login?" "Around 10:40 yesterday morning," I said. He nodded, staring at his screen. He clicked a few times. He hummed, a low, non-committal sound that made my stomach twist. "Yeah, I see the flag here," he said. "The system blocked the IP after the second attempt, but..." He paused, leaning in. "I am seeing a successful sync authorization from Saturday, around 7:45 in the evening. Device ID is generic_PNP_monitor? That is weird. That is usually a display driver, but it is registering as a storage mount." I gripped the edge of the counter. That was when I was at my parents' house. Kevin looked at me. "Claire, did the device leave your possession this weekend?" This was the moment, the cliff edge. I could lie. I could say no. I could say I left it in my car and maybe someone broke in. But lying to IT was a termination offense. It was in the handbook. Section 4, paragraph 3. "Yes," I whispered. He stopped typing. He looked at me, his expression shifting from helpful tech support to something colder, more procedural. "Did you use it on a public network? A coffee shop?" "No." I said. "I was at my parents' house. My brother." I hesitated. The shame burning my face. My brother asked to borrow it, to print a resume. Kevin stared at me for a long beat. "You gave your credentials to a non-employee?" I typed the password in myself. I said quickly, desperate to salvage the shred of professionalism I had left. I watched him. He just went to his email. He didn't have my password, but you left the session active, Kevin said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Kevin sighed. He pushed his chair back. "Okay, I have to escalate this. It is mandatory reporting for any unauthorized physical access. You know the drill." "Claire." "I know." I said. I felt like I was floating outside my body. "I know. I'm going to have to image the laptop." He said. "Do you have it with you?" I handed over the bag. He took it. The weight of it leaving my hands felt final. "Go back to your desk," Kevin said, his voice flat. "Someone will reach out to you. Do not log into any other company devices until you are cleared." I walked back to my cubicle. The office hummed with the morning routine. Coffee grinders whirring, phones ringing, the soft murmur of conversations about weekends and football games. I felt like a ghost walking through a living world. I sat at my desk, staring at the blank monitors. I couldn't log in. I had nothing to do but wait. 20 minutes later, Tracy Mullane appeared at the entrance to my cubicle. Tracy was the director of compliance. She had hired me 5 years ago. We had a rapport built on shared competency. We were the women who cleaned up the messes the sales team made. We traded knowing looks in meetings when someone proposed a timeline that was regulatory suicide. I looked up at her, hoping for that familiar camaraderie, the "let's fix this" energy. It wasn't there. Tracy stood with her arms crossed, holding a tablet against her chest. Her face was composed, her jaw set. "Claire," she said, "can we step into my office?" "Sure," I said. I followed her. The walk to her office felt like a march to the gallows. She closed the door behind us. A solid, heavy click that shut out the hum of the floor. She didn't sit behind her desk. She leaned against the edge of it, keeping distance between us. "It just pinged me," she said. I nodded. I wanted to vomit. "Tracy, I am so sorry. It was a lapse in judgment. My brother just needed to print a file. And She held up a hand. "Stop." I shut my mouth. "Do not tell me the details," she said. "Not yet. Whatever you say to me right now, I have to document, if this becomes a legal matter. I cannot be your confidant. I am your manager." The words hit me like a physical blow. "If this becomes a legal matter—" "Tracy," I said, my voice shaking. "It was just a resume." I watched him. "Did you?" Tracy asked. Her eyes were searching mine, not with sympathy, but with calculation. She was assessing the damage. She was looking at me and seeing a risk vector. Because IT says there was a data exfiltration event. Small, but distinct. A folder was copied. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Copied?" "To an external drive," she said. "On Saturday night." I thought about the generic _PNP_monitor. I thought about Evan's smile. "I just need 10 minutes. I didn't know." I whispered. "Claire," Tracy said, and her voice dropped an octave, losing its professional sheen for just a second. "You are the most careful person I know. You flag typos in vendor contracts. You catch insurance lapses a month before they happen. How did you let this happen?" "I don't know." I said, "It was family." Tracy looked away. She looked at the window, at the gray sky over the parking lot. "Family is the worst vulnerability," she said softly. Then she straightened up, the manager mask sliding back into place. "Listen to me. You are going to be locked out of the system for at least 24 hours while they do a forensic audit of the device. You can stay here and do manual review on hard copies, or you can take a personal day." "I will stay." I said, "I cannot go home. If I went home, I would have to think about Evan." "Fine," she said. "But Claire?" "Yes. If they find anything sensitive was taken, anything that triggers a notification to our partners. This goes out of my hands. It goes to legal and security, and they do not care that you have 5 years of perfect reviews." "I understand," I said. I went back to my desk. I spent the next 4 hours manually reconciling paper invoices from 2022. It was busy work, punishment work. At noon, Reena Patel stopped by my desk. Reena was a compliance officer for the Hazardous Materials Division. She was sharp, cynical, and had a dark sense of humor that usually made lunch breaks bearable. "Lunch?" she asked. I shook my head. "I am not hungry." She looked at my dark monitors. She looked at the stack of paper on my desk. She leaned in, lowering her voice. "I saw Kevin walking out with your laptop," she murmured. "And Tracy looks like she swallowed a lemon." "What is going on?" I hesitated. I shouldn't talk about it, but the isolation was crushing me. I might have a security breach. I whispered, "My brother used my laptop." Reena's eyes widened. "Oh, Claire, that is bad." "I know," I said, "but it was just the basic work folder. Templates, old training manuals, nothing classified. It is embarrassing, but it shouldn't be a disaster." Reena didn't look reassured. She pulled a spare chair into my cubicle and sat down, her knees touching mine. "Claire," she said, her voice barely audible, "you know there is no such thing as a basic file anymore, right?" "What do you mean?" "The templates," she said. "They have metadata, author tags, revision history, and the vendor lists, even the sanitized ones. They just have city and state." I said, "And the vendor category codes, no names, no tax IDs." Reena shook her head. "It is called mosaic theory. If I have your vendor category codes and the shipping cities, and I cross-reference that with public manifest data from the Port Authority, I can de-anonymize 90% of those vendors. I can map your entire supply chain. I stared at her. But why? Why would anyone care about a mid-sized logistics company's supply chain? We handle tech components, Rena said. We handle dual-use electronics. Stuff that goes into heavy machinery, but also other things. If someone wants to bypass sanctions or avoid tariffs, knowing who we use for the last-mile delivery is gold. It tells them which routes are soft, which vendors we trust. My mouth felt dry. Evan didn't know about dual-use electronics. Evan thought logistics was just trucks driving on highways. He said he just copied templates for a friend. I said, a guy helping him get into the industry. Rena's expression turned grim. A friend. She repeated, Claire, people don't ask for templates because they admire your formatting. They ask for templates because they want to know the data structure. They want to know what our system looks for so they can fake it. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the office air conditioning. You need to find out exactly what he took, Rena said. And you need to find out who this friend is. Because if this blows up, I didn't know isn't going to save you. I left work at 3 o'clock. I couldn't focus on the invoices anymore. I drove straight to the address Evan had listed on his most recent car insurance paperwork, a garden apartment complex in Northeast Briar called The Pines, which had neither pines nor gardens. I called him from the parking lot. Yo, Claire, he answered on the second ring. His voice was bright, unburdened. What is shaking? I need to see you. I said, now, I am outside your apartment. Whoa. Okay, he said, a little aggressive. But sure. Come on up. Unit 2B? I walked up the stairs. The hallway smelled of curry and old carpet. Evan opened the door wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt that said, Hustle Harder. He looked so normal, so vividly, frustratingly normal. Hey, he said, stepping back to let me in. The apartment was sparse, a massive television, a gaming chair, and a stack of pizza boxes. To a recruiter? It does not look great. I didn't sit down. I stood in the middle of his living room, clutching my keys so hard my knuckles turned white. Did you copy files from my laptop? I asked. He blinked. His smile faltered, then returned. Tighter this time. What? No. I told you. I printed my resume. Don't lie to me. Evan, I said, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and terror. IT found the logs. They saw a mass copy event to an external drive. Saturday night, while I was doing dishes, he looked away. He scratched the back of his neck. He walked over to the kitchen counter and picked up a can of energy drink. Okay. Look, he said. I grabbed a couple of templates. It is not a big deal. Claire, it is a big deal. I shouted. The sound of my own voice startled me. I never shouted. I was the quiet one. I was the one who absorbed the noise. I am under investigation. Evan, my boss is treating me like a criminal. They took my laptop. They might fire me. He rolled his eyes. God, you are so dramatic. It is just spreadsheets. Blank ones. Miles just wanted to see how the big guys structure their rate cards. He is setting up a boutique consultancy, and he wanted to make sure his back end was compatible. Miles? I asked. Who is Miles? Miles Harker. Evan said. The guy I told you about. The recruiter. He is mentoring me. He said if I could bring some examples of industry-standard documentation, it would speed up my onboarding. He asked you to steal my work? He didn't use the word steal, Evan said, his defensiveness spiking. He asked for resources, and I didn't think you would mind because you are always talking about how boring your job is. I thought I was showing initiative. You lied to me. I said, you looked me in the eye and said you were printing a resume. I didn't want to lecture, Evan shouted back, throwing his hands up. Look at you. You are acting like I sold nuclear codes. It is a Word document. Claire, get a grip. You always do this. You always act like you are the only one who knows how the world works. And the rest of us are just screwing up your perfect life. I stared at him. The entitlement was breathtaking. He had jeopardized my entire career to impress a stranger, and he was angry at me for catching him. Rena's words echoed in my head. People don't ask for templates because they admire your formatting. Give me the drive. I said, What? The drive you copied them to? Give it to me. I don't have it, he said. I gave it to Miles. You gave it to him? Yeah. On Sunday. He needed to review the formats. My stomach dropped. The data was out. It was gone. Call him. I said, Tell him you need it back. I can't just demand it back. Claire, he is reviewing it. I don't want to look like an idiot who can't commit to a project. I stepped closer to him. I was shorter than him, but in that moment, I felt like I towered over him. If you don't get that drive back, I said, my voice deadly quiet, I am going to have to tell my company's security team that you stole proprietary data. And they won't just fire me. They will sue you. Evan laughed. But it was a nervous sound. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't call the cops on your own brother. Mom would kill you. Try me, I said. I turned and walked out. I didn't wait for his answer. I needed to get away from him before I started crying or screaming or both. I was halfway back to East Briar when my phone rang. The dashboard display said Mom. I let it ring 3 times. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but the conditioning ran too deep. I pressed the answer button on the steering wheel. Hello? Claire? Diane's voice was sharp. I just got off the phone with Evan. He is extremely upset. I gripped the steering wheel. He is upset? Mom, he stole files from my work computer. I am in serious trouble. Oh, stop it, she said. He told me what happened. He borrowed a few templates. You are making it sound like he robbed a bank. He's trying to get his life together. Claire, he finally has a mentor. Someone who sees potential in him, and you are threatening to sue him? He lied to me. Mom, he violated my trust. He was afraid you would say no, she said, because you are always so rigid. You hold on to your little rules like a shield. You have to understand. Evan isn't like you. He needs help. He needs a leg up. I am risking my job. Mom, I shouted at the windshield. Does that matter to you? That I might lose the career I have worked 10 years for? You won't lose your job, she said dismissively. You are smart. You will talk your way out of it. You always land on your feet. But Evan, if you ruin this for him, Claire, if you scare this Miles person away, Evan goes back to 0. Is that what you want? Do you want him to fail? I felt tears pricking my eyes. It was always the same argument. My stability was a given, a natural resource to be mined to patch up the holes in Evan's life. It is not about what I want. I said, it is about the law. The law. She scoffed. You sound just like your father when he gets scared. Listen to me. This Miles fellow? Evan says he is paying him a consulting fee just for the templates, $5,000. I went cold. He paid him? He's going to pay him, she corrected. Once the project starts, do you know what $5,000 would do for your brother right now? It would pay off his car note. It would give him breathing room. It would be nice, for once, if something worked out for him, don't you think? She was using the money as a weapon. She was framing his bribe, because that is what it was, a bribe for stolen data, as a lucky break. I have to go. Mom, I said, I am driving. Claire, I hung up. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. My hands were shaking so bad the car seemed to vibrate. $5,000. Nobody paid $5,000 for blank templates. They were paying for the keys to the castle. When I got to my apartment, I opened my personal email on my iPad. I didn't want to, but I had to check if Tracy had sent anything to my personal account since I was locked out of work. There was one email, from Northbridge Security Notification. Subject: Notice of Security Incident Review. Preservation Order. I opened it. The text was blocky and terrifying. Ms. Ward, this email serves as formal notification that an internal review has been opened regarding incident number 8922-B. Pending the completion of this review, you are hereby instructed to preserve all data on any personal devices that may have been connected to Northbridge Lane Solutions Networks. Do not delete, alter, or transfer any files. A courier will be contacting you to arrange for the forensic imaging of your personal mobile device. Please acknowledge receipt of this message. I stared at the screen. Forensic imaging of your personal mobile device. They wanted my phone. They wanted my texts, my photos, my life. I sat there for a long time. The sun went down, the apartment filled with shadows. I couldn't just sit here. I had to know what Evan had given them. I had to know how bad it was. I texted Evan. Meet me. Halfway. The diner on Route 9. 8 p.m. Bring whatever else you have. He didn't reply for 20 minutes. Then, Evan. Fine. I arrived at the diner early. I parked in the back. Away from the streetlights. I felt like a criminal. I watched the cars pull in. Evan's beat-up Honda Civic rolled into the lot at 8:10. He parked 2 spots away from me. I got out and walked over to his car. He didn't get out. He rolled down the window. The interior of his car was a mess. Wrappers, gym clothes, old mail. Did you bring it? I asked. I told you. I gave the drive to Miles. He said. He didn't look at me. He was tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. A nervous, erratic rhythm. What else? I asked. Did you give him anything else? No. He said, just the files. I looked into the back seat. There was a pile of laundry, a crate of protein powder, and a stack of papers sliding off the seat. I saw the Northbridge logo. What is that? I asked, pointing. Evan turned around. Oh, that? That is just... scrap. I reached through the open window and unlocked the back door. Hey, Evan shouted. What are you doing? I pulled the door open. I grabbed the stack of papers. They were spreadsheets. My spreadsheets. Rate card _summary. XLSX. But they weren't just printed. They were marked up. I held them under the dim light of the parking lot. Red ink slashed across the rows. Circles around specific vendor names. Global Reach Logistics. Titanium Transport. Echo Valley Shipping. Handwritten notes in the margins. Check lane frequency. Verify owner status. Soft target? The handwriting wasn't Evan's. Evan wrote in a messy, blocky scrawl. This handwriting was precise, slanted, sharp. I looked at the dates on the printouts. They were from 2 weeks ago. Evan, I said, my voice barely a whisper. When did you print these? He didn't answer. Evan! Okay, he snapped. A couple of weeks ago, Miles asked for some samples, hard copies. He said he wanted to mark them up. Show me how to analyze them. It was a training exercise. A training exercise. I repeated. I flipped through the pages. Soft target? Who writes soft target on a shipping manifest? This isn't a resume. Evan, I said, and this isn't consulting. This is reconnaissance. Recon, what? You are crazy. Claire, it is business. I looked at the circled names again. Titanium Transport. I knew that vendor. They handled high-priority air freight. Expensive stuff. Urgent stuff. Who is Miles Harker? I asked. Have you met him? In person? Yeah. Of course. Evan said. We met at the gym. He is cool. He drives a Porsche. He is legit. He is using you. Evan, I said, he is using you to map Northbridge's vulnerabilities. He is not using me. Evan slammed his hand on the steering wheel. Why can't you just be happy that I have a connection? Why do you have to tear everything down? I looked at my brother. I saw the desperation in his eyes, the need to be big, to be important. He was so hungry for validation that he had let a wolf into the fold because the wolf had complemented his potential. I clutched the papers to my chest. I'm keeping these. Fine, take them, Evan yelled. I don't need them anyway. I slammed the back door. I walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the marked-up pages. The red ink looked like blood in the yellow streetlight. Soft target. This wasn't just about my job anymore. This wasn't just about a breach of policy. Someone was building a map of my company's supply chain. They were looking for weak points, and they had found the weakest point of all. My family. I started the car. I needed to go home. I needed to hide these papers. And then I needed to figure out how to survive the storm that was about to make landfall. I looked in the rearview mirror as I pulled away. Evan was still sitting there, alone in his car, staring straight ahead. He looked small. He didn't know it yet, but he had just sold us both out for a promise that was never going to be kept. The courier arrived at 7 o'clock in the morning. He did not look like a courier. He looked like a bouncer who had put on a polo shirt. He stood in my hallway, holding a padded hard case, and waited while I surrendered my phone. I watched him place my Google Pixel into a Faraday bag, a silver, foil-lined pouch designed to block all signals before sealing it inside the case. "Thank you, Ms. Ward," he said. He did not smile. When the door clicked shut, the silence in my apartment was absolute. I felt amputated. My phone was my lifeline, my calendar, my connection to the world. Now it was evidence. I had spent the previous night doing exactly what the preservation order told me not to do, but in a way I hoped was defensible. I didn't delete anything. I didn't alter anything. I documented. I sat at my kitchen table with my personal iPad, which they hadn't asked for yet, and took photos of my phone screen. I screenshotted the call log showing the incoming call from Brightwell Freight. I screenshotted the text messages from Evan. I exported my browser history to a PDF and emailed it to a brand new, encrypted Proton Mail account I had set up 10 minutes prior. I was trying to build a wall of facts. If I could just pile up enough timestamps and logs, maybe I could prove that I was the victim here. But as I worked, my hands shook so badly I had to keep putting the stylus down. I realized that my obsession with documentation was just another form of avoidance. I was trying to organize the disaster instead of stopping it. I showered, dressed in my most severe charcoal suit, and drove to work. The drive felt different. I found myself checking the rearview mirror every 30 seconds, looking for what? I didn't know. A black SUV? A police car? When I swiped my badge at the turnstile, the light turned green. I let out a breath I'd been holding since the parking lot. I wasn't fired yet, but I wasn't going to my desk. I had a meeting invitation in my Outlook calendar, which I could only access from the kiosk in the lobby since my laptop was gone. Security review. Conference room B, 8:30 A. Conference room B was in the basement level, near the server rooms. It was windowless, soundproofed, and cold. When I walked in, Tracy was there, but she wasn't running the meeting. 2 men sat at the table. One was the head of Northbridge Physical Security, a man named Henderson who usually dealt with lost keycards. The other man I didn't know. He was younger, wearing a suit that cost more than my car, and he had a laptop open in front of him that was not issued by Northbridge. "Sit down." "Claire," Tracy said. She didn't look at me. She was staring at a water stain on the table. I sat. "This is Mr. Vance," Henderson said. "He is an external forensic consultant we have brought in to assist with the investigation." Mr. Vance didn't waste time on pleasantries. He turned his laptop around so I could see the screen. It showed a visualization of network traffic, lines of light connecting nodes on a map. "Ms. Ward," Vance said. His voice was smooth, devoid of judgment, which made it terrifying. "We have analyzed the exfiltration event from Saturday night. We have also correlated it with the attempted login from China and the unauthorized email draft." I nodded. I told IT. I said, "I reported it." "We know." Vance said, "But what you need to understand is the nature of the data that was targeted. This wasn't a random smash and grab. The user who accessed your machine didn't browse. They didn't look at your photos. They didn't open your payroll info. They went to a specific directory path that is not indexed in the main search bar. They knew exactly where the sanitized vendor lists were stored." He tapped a key. The screen changed to show a timeline. "File access time, 3 seconds. He said, "Copy time, 12 seconds. This is a pattern consistent with targeted exfiltration. Someone provided the actor with the file path." I felt the blood drain from my face. The actor. He meant Evan. "My brother," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "My brother used the computer. He is not a hacker. He doesn't know file paths." "Mr." Vance looked at me. "Then who gave him the instructions?" I stared at the screen. I thought about the marked-up spreadsheets in Evan's car. The red ink, soft target. He said he was helping a friend. I said, A recruiter. A man named Miles Harker. Vance typed the name into a note. Miles Harker. Okay. And did your brother say why this Miles Harker wanted these specific files? He said he wanted templates, I said, to learn the industry standards. Vance exchanged a look with Henderson. It was a look that said, she is either lying or she is an idiot. Ms. Ward, Vance said, turning back to me. The files that were copied contained metadata tags that correspond to our high-risk supply corridors, specifically, the component shipments for aerospace contracts. If those lists are combined with external shipping manifests, they reveal the identity of subcontractors that are supposed to be confidential. He leaned forward. This isn't about templates, he said. This is about mapping a restricted supply chain, and the fact that your credentials were used suggests that, to the outside world, you are the one selling the map. I felt sick, physically sick. The room seemed to tilt. I didn't sell anything. I said, I have been here 5 years. I am the compliance officer. I stop this kind of thing. Tracy finally looked up. Her eyes were sad. Claire, we want to believe you, but the logs show your password was entered manually. There was no brute force on Saturday. You gave him access. I did. I admitted. The shame washed over me, hot and suffocating. I gave him access because I didn't want to fight with my mother. It sounded so pathetic. I committed corporate espionage because I'm afraid of my mom. We are going to need the name of this recruiter, Vance said, and we are going to need any communication you have had with him. I haven't spoken to him. I said, only my brother has. Then you need to get your brother on the record, Vance said, because right now, the record points to you. I left the meeting in a daze. I walked to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked the same. Pale skin, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, sensible blouse. But the person behind the eyes was different. That person was a suspect. I went back to my desk to pack my things. Tracy had told me, gently but firmly, that my access was suspended pending the conclusion of the review, as I was putting my stapler into a cardboard box. My desk phone rang. I stared at it. Nobody called my desk phone. I picked it up. Claire Ward. Ms. Ward? This is the fraud department at Sovereign Bank. We are calling to verify a recent application for a secured line of credit. I frowned. I didn't apply for a line of credit. I bank with First National. There was a pause on the line. I see. Well, we received an online application yesterday evening. It used your social security number, your home address, and your current employer information. The income stated was significantly lower than the industry standard for your role, and the applicant indicated, let me see here, financial hardship due to family medical debts as the reason for the expedited request. I gripped the receiver. Yesterday evening? Yes, ma'am. 7:40 p.m. I closed my eyes. At 7:40 p.m., I was at the diner with Evan. I was looking at the marked-up spreadsheets. Someone was applying for credit in my name while I was confronting my brother. Cancel it. I said, it is fraud. I did not apply. I will flag it, the woman said. But Ms. Ward, the application included a copy of your driver's license, a digital scan. I hung up. My driver's license was in my wallet, but I had scanned it months ago. It was in my personal _docs folder on my laptop, the laptop Evan had accessed. The picture was completing itself. It wasn't just about stealing files. It was about building a narrative. Claire Ward, disgruntled employee, facing financial hardship, sells company secrets to pay off debts. They were framing me, and they were using my own brother to do it. I walked out of the office with my cardboard box. I didn't say goodbye to Rena. I didn't look at Kevin in IT. I walked to my car, put the box in the passenger seat, and drove straight to my parents' house. I didn't call first. I knew if I called, Diane would manage the situation. She would set the stage. I needed to catch them off guard. When I walked into the kitchen, it was lunchtime. Diane was making sandwiches. Martin was reading the paper. Evan was there, sitting at the island, scrolling on his phone. Claire? Diane said, dropping the knife. What are you doing here? You should be at work. I am not at work, I said, I am on administrative leave. I have been suspended. The room went silent. Evan looked up, his face pale. Suspended? Diane repeated. For what? For the data breach. Mom, I said, for the files Evan stole, and for the fact that someone is now trying to take out loans in my name using the documents on my hard drive. I looked at Evan. He shrank back in his stool. You didn't tell me that, he whispered. I didn't know until 10 minutes ago, I screamed. It was the first time I had raised my voice in that house in 20 years. The sound of it shocked all of us. Martin lowered his paper. Diane took a step back. They are building a case against me. Evan, I said, walking toward him, the people you are working for, Miles Harker. They are setting me up to look like I sold the data because I am broke. That is crazy, Evan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Miles is a recruiter. He is a business guy. Show me the messages. I said, what? Show me the messages with Miles. Right now. Open your app. Evan hesitated. He looked at Diane. Show her. Evan, Martin said. His voice was quiet, but for once, it was firm. Evan pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen. He frowned. He tapped again. His face went white. What is it? I asked. It logged me out. He said, log back in. I am trying, he said. He typed furiously. Invalid password. That is impossible. I use the same password for everything. He looked up at me, panic rising in his eyes. It says the account doesn't exist. I let out a harsh, jagged laugh. Of course it doesn't, because he deleted it. He got what he wanted. Evan, he got the files. He got my ID. And now he has scrubbed the connection to you. Evan dropped the phone on the counter. He put his head in his hands. He said he was going to wire the money today. He mumbled, 5,000. He said he just needed the verification. He was never going to pay you. I said, I felt a cold, hard clarity settling over me. You were the tool. Evan, you were the discardable entry point. Diane moved to Evan's side, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. Stop it. Claire, you are scaring him. He made a mistake. He was duped. We can fix this. We just need to explain it to your boss. Explain it? I looked at my mother. Do you understand what is happening? This isn't a misunderstanding. This is federal. Northbridge handles restricted technology. The people investigating this aren't HR. They are forensics. We will hire a lawyer. Martin said. He stood up, looking older than I had ever seen him. We will get a family attorney, Bob Miller downtown. He did my will. Bob Miller handles traffic tickets and estates. Dad, I said, I need a criminal defense attorney, and so does Evan. No, Diane said sharply. No criminal lawyers. That makes us look guilty. If we bring in lawyers, it becomes a circus. We keep this in the family. We tell them it was an accident. Evan clicked the wrong folder. I stared at her. She was delusional. She was trying to smooth over a felony the same way she smoothed over a burnt roast. Mom, I said, they have logs. They know it wasn't an accident. They know he copied specific files. If I lie to them, I go to prison. Diane's face hardened. And if you tell them the truth? If you tell them your brother stole from you? What happens to him? I looked at Evan. He was crying now. Silent. Shameful tears. I don't know. I said, but I cannot go to jail for him. You are the strong one, Diane said. Her voice was a whisper, but it cut like a razor. You have always been the strong one. You have a clean record. You have a career. If you take some of the heat, you can bounce back. Evan will break. Claire, if he gets into the system, he won't survive it. I looked at my father. Dad? Martin looked down at the table. We just need to let it cool down. Claire, don't make any rash decisions. Don't go pointing fingers yet. Just wait. See if it blows over. It was the family motto. See if it blows over. It isn't going to blow over. I said. I grabbed my purse. I looked at my family. My mother protecting her baby. My father hiding from the conflict. My brother weeping in self-pity. They were asking me to set myself on fire to keep them warm. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it very gently. It felt like closing the lid on a coffin. I didn't go home. I drove to downtown East Briar, to a glass building that housed the firm of Sutter Associates. I didn't have an appointment, but I had money in my savings account, and I knew Leah Sutter's reputation. She was the lawyer you called when the corporate world tried to eat you. I waited in the reception area for 2 hours. Finally, Leah Sutter came out. She was 60, with short gray hair and glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. She looked like a librarian who hunted sharks on the weekends. "You are the compliance analyst from Northbridge," she said. "I heard about the breach. Bad news travels fast in this town. Come on in." I sat in her office and told her everything. I told her about the laptop, the favor, the files, the recruiter, the credit fraud. I told her about the meeting with Vance. When I finished, Leah leaned back in her chair and took off her glasses. "You are in a very dangerous position, Claire," she said. "I know." I said, "I don't think you do." She corrected. "You are thinking about this like a corporate policy violation. You are worried about losing your job. You need to be worried about losing your liberty." She picked up a pen and tapped it on the desk. "Here is the reality. The federal government is cracking down on supply chain leaks. They are looking for examples to make. You fit the profile of an insider threat perfectly. You have access. You have the technical knowledge. And now, thanks to this credit application, you have a financial motive." "But I didn't do it." I said, "It doesn't matter what you did." Leah said, "It matters what they can prove. And right now, all the physical evidence points to you. The only evidence that points away from you is your testimony that your brother did it." She looked me in the eye. "To clear your name, you are going to have to give them Evan," she said. "And not just his name. You are going to have to testify that he accessed your computer, that he confessed to you, and that he was communicating with a third party. You are going to have to be the primary witness for the prosecution against your own brother." I felt a cold knot in my stomach. Can't I just tell them about Miles? "Miles is a ghost," Leah said. "He deleted the account. The phone number was probably a burner. The only link they have to the network is Evan. If you give them Evan, they might offer you immunity to get to the bigger fish. If you protect Evan, you become the co-conspirator." I thought about Diane's face. "You are the strong one. I have to choose between myself and my family." I said. Leah shook her head. "No, your family already chose. They chose to sacrifice you. You are just deciding whether to agree with them." I wrote a retainer check. My hands were steady this time. When I got back to my apartment, it was dark. The streetlights cast long, orange shadows across the parking lot. I parked my car and walked toward the building entrance. As I fumbled for my keys, I noticed a vehicle parked across the street. It was a gray sedan, a Ford Taurus. Boring, unremarkable, but the engine was idling, and there were 2 silhouettes in the front seats. I stopped. I watched them. They didn't move. They were just sitting there, facing my building. I realized then that Leah was right. This wasn't HR. This wasn't corporate security. I went inside and locked my door. I engaged the deadbolt. I put the chain across. I walked to the window and peeked through the blinds. The gray sedan was still there. I sat on the floor below the window, my back against the wall. I pulled my knees to my chest. I was 33 years old. I had done everything right. I had followed every rule. And now, I was a prisoner in my own home, watching the watchers, waiting for the knock that I knew was coming. The knock didn't sound like it did in the movies. In the movies, the police hammered on the door, shouting, creating a chaotic spectacle that gave you a moment to brace yourself. This knock was different. It was 3 sharp, rhythmic raps, precise, heavy, controlled. It was the sound of authority that knew it didn't need to shout because it wasn't going away. I woke up instantly. The clock on my nightstand read 6 o'clock in the morning. The gray light of dawn was just beginning to bleed through the blinds, casting long, pale stripes across the floor. My heart was already hammering against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. I knew who it was. I think, deep down, I had known they were coming since I saw the sedan across the street the night before. I put on my robe. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't tie the sash on the first try. I walked to the door. I looked through the peephole. There were 4 of them. 2 men, 2 women. They were wearing windbreakers with yellow lettering on the back. But from this angle, I could only see the front. They looked like accountants who carried guns. I opened the door. "Claire Ward?" the lead agent asked. He was a man in his 40s, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that looked like they had seen everything and found it all mildly disappointing. "Yes," I said. My voice was a croak. "I am Special Agent Navarro with Homeland Security Investigations," he said. He held up a badge, then a folded stack of papers. "We have a federal warrant to search this residence and to seize all electronic devices and digital media." He didn't yell. He didn't push past me. He waited. It was the waiting that terrified me. It implied that I had no choice, and we both knew it. "May I see the warrant?" I asked. Leah Sutter had told me to ask. "Always read the paper," she had said. Agent Navarro handed it to me. I looked at the text, but the words swam before my eyes. United States District Court, probable cause, conspiracy to violate the Export Administration regulations. "Conspiracy," I whispered. "We are going to come in now." "Ms. Ward," Navarro said, "please step back." I stepped back. They flowed into my apartment like water. Efficient, silent. One agent went immediately to my desk. Another went to the bedroom. Navarro pointed to my kitchen table. "Please take a seat," he said. I sat. I pulled my robe tighter around me. I felt incredibly small. I watched them dismantle my life. The agent at the desk was unplugging my router. He was bagging my iPad. He was coiling the power cord of my backup hard drive. They moved with a practiced boredom that made me realize I was just one stop on a very long list of stops. "Ms. Ward," Navarro said, sitting opposite me. He didn't have a notebook. He just looked at me. "We need to ask you some questions. You are not under arrest at this moment, but you are a subject of interest in an active federal investigation. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. "I want to cooperate." "Good," Navarro said. "Tell me about Brightwell Freight Consulting." "I don't know them." I said, "I received one call from them on Monday. A man named Julian." I hung up on him. Navarro didn't blink. "And Seacrest Meridian Trading?" I shook my head. "I have never heard that name." Navarro sighed. He reached into a folder he had placed on the table and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He slid it across to me. It was a printout of an Excel spreadsheet. It looked like one of mine. It had the same font, the same header style. But the data was different. It showed a list of shipping containers, their contents labeled as agricultural machinery parts. "We recovered this file from a server in a warehouse in New Jersey 2 days ago." Navarro said, "That warehouse is a transshipment point for Seacrest Meridian. They are a shell company we suspect is rerouting restricted dual-use components, guidance chips, high-grade sensors, to embargoed nations. They label them as tractor parts." I stared at the paper. "What does this have to do with me?" "Look at the metadata," Navarro said. He pointed to a string of text at the bottom of the page. Author, Quard_NLS. Created, October 12, 2023. Template source, rate card, _summary, _V4. I felt the room spin. That is my username. I said, "But I didn't write this. I didn't create this file." "No," Navarro said. "You created the skeleton. You created the template, and someone used your template to build a manifest that would pass a casual inspection by your own company's compliance software. They used your formatting, your internal codes, your vendor IDs to make a smuggling operation look like a standard logistics shipment." He leaned forward. "The file fragments we found on the Seacrest server match the files that were exfiltrated from your laptop on Saturday night. The basic work folder. You told your corporate IT that it was a mistake. But to us, it looks like a delivery. It wasn't a delivery." I said. My voice rose, cracking. "It was theft. My brother borrowed my laptop. He thought he was helping a recruiter." Navarro's expression didn't change. "We know about your brother. We have a team at your parents' house in Maple Hollow right now." My stomach dropped. "You are at my parents' house?" That is the point of origin for the exfiltration. Navarro said, "We have to secure the network." I stood up. "I need to go there." "Sit down." "Ms. Ward," the female agent by the door said. Her hand rested lightly on her belt. "I need to go there," I repeated, looking at Navarro. "If you are questioning my brother, you need to know the truth. He is easily manipulated. He won't explain it right." Navarro studied me for a long moment. Then he stood up. "We are heading there next to oversee the search," he said. "You can ride with us. But I'm telling you now, Ms. Ward, if you try to coordinate a story with your family, if you try to obstruct us in any way, I will put you in handcuffs in front of your mother. Do we have an understanding?" "Yes," I said. The ride to Maple Hollow took 45 minutes. I sat in the back of the unmarked sedan, separated from the agents by a wire mesh partition. It felt like I was being transported to my execution. I watched the familiar landmarks of my childhood roll by. The high school, the Dairy Queen, the park where I learned to ride a bike. They all looked distorted, alien, as if I were seeing them from a different dimension. When we pulled into the driveway, there were 2 other cars already there, black SUVs. My father's garage door was open. Agents were inside, going through his tool bench. We walked into the house. The scene was a nightmare version of a family gathering. Diane was sitting on the floral sofa, weeping into a tissue. Martin was standing by the fireplace, looking gray and shrunken. Evan was in the kitchen, sitting at the table with an agent, his head in his hands. When Diane saw me, she stood up. Her face was blotchy, her eyes wide with a mix of terror and fury. "Claire," she cried, "what is happening? They are taking the computers. They are taking Evan's phone." I walked into the living room. Navarro followed close behind me. "I told you." "Mom," I said quietly, "I told you this was serious." "Serious?" Diane shrieked. She pointed a trembling finger at me. "You brought this on us. You and your secret little job. You were always so secretive." "Claire, I can't talk about work." "Mom, it is compliance." "Mom, if you had just been open with us, if you had just shared what you were doing, Evan wouldn't have had to sneak around." I felt something snap inside me. It was a small, sharp sound, like a dry twig breaking. I wasn't secretive. I said, my voice was low, but it cut through her hysteria. I was professional. I was careful. And Evan didn't sneak around because I was secretive. He snuck around because he wanted to steal from me. "Don't you dare call your brother a thief," Diane shouted. She looked at the agents, pleading. "He is a good boy. He was just trying to get a job. She is the one who brought these files into our home." I looked at my mother. I really looked at her. For 33 years, I had tried to be the perfect daughter, the reliable one, the one who fixed things. And in the moment when I needed her most, when federal agents were standing in her living room accusing her daughter of conspiracy, she threw me to the wolves to save her son. I turned away from her. I looked at Navarro. "I want to hear what he is saying," I said, nodding toward the kitchen. Navarro nodded. He motioned for me to follow. We stood in the doorway of the kitchen. Evan didn't see me. He was focused on the agent sitting across from him, a younger man with a laptop. "So, Evan," the agent said, "tell me about Miles Harker. How did he contact you?" "He approached me at the gym." Evan stammered. "He said he was a recruiter, and he asked for files?" "No," Evan said quickly. He shook his head violently. "No, he didn't ask for files. He just asked for general industry knowledge. I offered the templates. It was my idea. I just wanted to show him I understood the business." I closed my eyes. He is lying. He was minimizing Miles's role because he thought if he admitted he was solicited, he would look like a co-conspirator. But by claiming it was his idea, he was taking full responsibility for the theft. He was digging his own grave to avoid looking stupid. "Did Miles Harker pay you?" the agent asked. "No," Evan said. "Absolutely not. No money changed hands." I stepped into the kitchen. "Tell them about the $5,000. "Evan," I said. Evan jumped. He spun around in his chair. "Claire, tell them." I said, I felt cold. I felt no pity. Tell them he promised you $5,000 once the project started. Tell them about the debt relief. Evan's eyes darted around the room. I don't know what she is talking about, he said to the agent. He sounded desperate. Pathetic. She is just trying to make me look bad. There was no money. I was just networking. I looked at my brother. I saw the fear in his eyes, but I also saw the selfishness. He was willing to let me go down as the architect of this scheme rather than admit he had been bribed. He was protecting his ego while my life burned down. I turned to Navarro. He lied. I said, he told me and my mother 2 days ago that Miles promised him $5,000. He said it would be nice if something worked out for him for once. Navarro looked at Evan. Is that true? Mr. Ward? Lying to a federal agent is a felony. Evan stammered. He looked at me, begging silently for me to stop, to fix it, to be the big sister who cleaned up the mess. I held his gaze, and then I looked away. I wasn't going to fix this. I walked back into the living room. I sat down in a chair in the corner. Away from my parents, I felt a strange sense of liberation. It was the liberation of having nothing left to lose. Navarro came back a few minutes later. He looked at me. We need to discuss the timeline. He said, Okay, I said. We have a log of a login attempt to the Northbridge vendor portal. He said, Tuesday morning, 2:13 a.m. I frowned. Tuesday morning? 2 days ago? Yes. The credentials used were yours. The IP address masked, but the device fingerprint matches a laptop that accessed the network through a VPN. I wasn't on my laptop at 2 in the morning on Tuesday. I said, I was asleep. Can you prove that? Navarro asked. It is a weak alibi. Ms. Ward, most people are asleep at 2 a.m. I thought back. Tuesday morning. That was the night after the breach was discovered. I hadn't been able to sleep. I was spiraling. Wait, I said, I wasn't asleep. I was on a call. A phone call? No, a video call. With my friend Sarah. She lives in London. It was 7 a.m. for her. I called her because I was panicking about the internal audit. We talked for an hour. What platform? Navarro asked. Zoom. I said, we use her corporate account because the connection is better. Navarro pulled out his phone. He typed something. If you were on a video call from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. and the vendor portal login happened at 2:13 a.m. from a different IP, then it wasn't me. I said, I can't be in 2 places at once, and I can't be on a video call on my iPad while logging into a secure work portal on a laptop I don't have. You didn't have your laptop? IT took it on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. I said, but the login was at 2 a.m. Tuesday. I had the laptop then. But you were on the iPad? Yes. The laptop was in my bag. I didn't touch it. Navarro nodded slowly. It suggests concurrent usage, or impersonation. He looked at me with a new intensity. If someone had your credentials, and they knew your habits, they could time the login to when they thought you would be asleep, or when they thought I wouldn't notice. I said, I reached into my purse. I pulled out the manila envelope I had brought with me. I have something else. I said. I opened the envelope and slid the stack of papers onto the coffee table. The marked-up spreadsheets, the ones with the red ink. I found these in my brother's car. I said, he told me he printed them for Miles, but the handwriting isn't Evan's. Navarro picked up the top sheet. He examined the red ink. He looked at the circled vendor names, Titanium Transport, Global Reach. He looked at the margin notes, Soft Target. He was silent for a long time. The air in the room seemed to get heavier. This isn't just a data leak, Navarro said quietly. This is an operational plan. He looked at me. You said your brother was approached at a gym? Yes. And this Miles Harker, he knew exactly what to ask for? Yes. Navarro placed the paper back on the table. He leaned in close to me. His voice dropped so my parents couldn't hear. Ms. Ward. These notes? They reference internal Northbridge risk assessments that aren't in your basic files. They reference shipping volume caps that only a senior logistics manager would know. What are you saying? I asked. I am saying that Miles Harker didn't need Evan to get the data. Navarro said, he already had the data, or someone else gave it to him. Then why involve Evan? Why steal my credentials? To create a patsy. Navarro said, to create a trail that leads to a disgruntled employee and her screw-up brother. He paused, watching my face. This looks like you were selected. Claire, not at random. Someone picked you. Someone picked your family. They knew your brother was weak. They knew you were risk-averse. They knew exactly how to play this so that when the DHS knocked on the door, we would find a messy domestic crime, not a professional espionage ring. I felt a chill go down my spine that was colder than anything I had felt before. Selected. Why me? I whispered. Navarro stood up. He looked around the living room, at the faded wallpaper, at the family photos on the mantel, pictures of me graduating, pictures of Evan playing baseball, a normal, boring American family. That is the question, isn't it? He said. He walked over to where Martin was standing. My father was staring at the floor, his arms crossed tight against his chest. Mr. Ward, Navarro said, I need to ask you something. Martin looked up. He looked terrified. Yes? We ran a background check on all immediate family members. Navarro said, standard procedure. It shows here that from 1995 to 1999, you were employed as a dispatcher for a company called Red Line Haulage. Is that correct? Martin's face went the color of ash. I worked there for a few years. Yes. Martin's voice was shaky. It was a long time ago. I was just a dispatcher. Red Line Haulage was dissolved in 2001 following a RICO indictment for moving stolen cargo. Navarro said, and 3 of its former executives are now listed as silent partners in Seacrest Meridian Trading. The room went dead silent. I stared at my father. Dad? I said. Martin looked at me, then at Diane, then back at the floor. I didn't think it mattered. He whispered, it was 25 years ago. I didn't know anything about the stolen cargo. I just dispatched the trucks. When the indictment came down, I left. I never put it on my resume. I wanted to forget it. You worked for them? I asked. The same people who are setting me up? I didn't know, Martin cried, his voice breaking. It was just a job. Claire, I was trying to put food on the table. Navarro looked from Martin to me. There is your connection, he said softly. They didn't pick you out of a phone book, Claire. They picked you because your father used to work for them. They knew the family vulnerabilities. They knew the history. I looked at my father, the quiet man, the man who always told me to keep my head down. He hadn't just been passive. He had been hiding. He had been hiding a secret that had festered for 20 years until it came back to destroy us. Secrets breed vulnerability. Rena had said that about Data. She didn't know she was talking about my bloodline. We are done here for now, Navarro said. He signaled to his team. Pack it up. We have the devices. We have the statement. He turned to me. Ms. Ward, do not leave East Briar. Do not access any Northbridge systems. Do not contact any current employees of Northbridge, including your manager. If you remember anything else, anything at all, you call this number. He handed me a card. It was plain white with black text. Department of Homeland Security. What happens now? I asked. Now we investigate. Navarro said, and you wait. He walked out the door. The other agents followed, carrying bags filled with our laptops, our phones, our digital lives. I stood in the living room with my family. The silence was deafening. Diane was still sitting on the sofa, but she wasn't crying anymore. She was staring at Martin with a look of horror. You worked for them? She whispered. You told me you worked for a moving company. Martin didn't answer. He just slumped into a chair, a man defeated by his own past. Evan was standing in the kitchen doorway. He looked at me. Claire, he said. Don't. I said. I walked to the front door. Where are you going? Diane asked. Her voice was weak, stripped of its earlier accusation. I am going home, I said. But we need to talk about this. We need to figure out what to do. There is nothing to talk about. I said, you made your choice. You chose to protect Evan. You chose to blame me. And Dad chose to hide the truth for 20 years. I opened the door. The air outside was cold and crisp. It smelled of leaves and rain. I am done fixing this, I said. I walked out to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and locked the doors. I didn't start the engine immediately. I watched the black SUVs pull away. I was alone. My job was gone. My family was shattered. My name was on a federal watch list. But as I put the car in gear, I realized one thing. I was the only one who had told the truth today. And in a world of lies, that had to count for something. I drove back to East Briar. I parked in my spot. I walked up to my apartment. The gray sedan was gone. But as I unlocked my door, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I turned around. The parking lot was empty, but I knew this wasn't over. Navarro had said it was an investigation, but he was wrong. It was a hunt, and I was the bait. The silence in my apartment wasn't peaceful. It was the heavy, pressurized silence of a submarine running deep, waiting for a depth charge to go off. For 33 years, I had navigated my life by a star chart of avoidance. If I just worked hard enough, if I was just quiet enough, if I just fixed the little problems before they became big ones, I would be safe. That star chart was gone. The sky was black. And for the first time in my life, I realized that trying to keep the peace was exactly what had started the war. I sat in Leah Sutter's office on a Tuesday morning. The room smelled of old paper and lemon furniture polish. Leah was reviewing the draft of a motion she was preparing to file. "We are requesting full discovery of the access logs," Leah said, peering over her glasses, "and we are filing an affidavit of non-involvement regarding the credit application. But Claire, I need you to be ready for what this means legally." "What does it mean?" I asked. I was wearing the same charcoal suit I had worn for the last 3 days. It felt like armor now, stiff and unyielding. "It means we are formally positioning your defense as adversarial to your brothers," she said. "We are not just saying you didn't do it, we are saying he did. We are submitting the text messages where he admits to the bribe. We are submitting the call logs. Once this is filed, there is no taking it back. You are handing the prosecutor the hammer to nail him with." I looked at the pen in my hand. It was a nice pen, heavy and balanced. I thought about Evan. I thought about him teaching me how to skip stones when we were kids. I thought about the way he looked when he was 5. Sleeping with his mouth open, trusting the world to be kind to him. Then I thought about the way he looked in the kitchen, lying to a federal agent while I stood right there. I thought about my father's silence. I thought about my mother screaming that I was the one who had brought this on us. They betrayed me first. I said, the words tasted like copper. They sold me out. "Leah, for $5,000 and a lie about a career path." Leah nodded. She didn't offer sympathy. She offered strategy. "Good," she said. "Then sign here." I signed. The ink was black and permanent. When I left her office, I turned my phone on. I had a new phone now. A cheap prepaid model Leah had bought for me. I had given the number to only 3 people. Leah, Agent Navarro, and Evan. There was a voicemail. "Claire, please." It was Evan. His voice sounded wet, ragged. "I am at the park, the one by the old elementary school. Please just talk to me. Mom is going crazy. Dad won't speak. I don't know what to do. I shouldn't have gone. Leah would have told me not to go. But the severance of the family bond was a physical wound, and I needed to see the infection one last time before I cauterized it. I drove to the park. It was a gray day, the sky the color of a bruise. Evan was sitting on a swing, his long legs dragging in the wood chips. He looked like a giant child, slumped and broken. I didn't get out of the car at first. I watched him. I saw him check his phone, look around, wipe his nose on his sleeve. He looked terrified. I got out. I walked over to the fence, keeping the chain link between us. "Evan," I said. He jumped up. He ran to the fence. His fingers curled through the metal diamonds. "Claire, thank God. You have to help me. They are talking about charges. Serious charges. Conspiracy. Wire fraud." I stood back. Out of reach. What did you think was going to happen? I asked. Did you think you could traffic stolen data and just walk away? I didn't know it was stolen, he cried. I mean, I knew it wasn't public, but Miles said everyone does it. He said it was just market research. Tell me about Miles. I said, and don't give me the recruiter speech. Tell me the truth. Evan slumped against the fence. The metal rattled. He found me on a forum. Evan whispered, a crypto forum. I was complaining about debt. He messaged me privately. He said he saw potential. We met for coffee. He was intense. Claire. He made me feel like I was wasting my life. I listened. I knew that feeling. Evan had spent his whole life waiting to be discovered, waiting for someone to tell him he was special without him having to do the work. He promised me a path, Evan said. He said if I could get the templates, he could get me a job as a regional analyst, $80,000 a year. He said he would wipe my credit card debt as a signing bonus. And the files? He got specific. Evan said, after the first meeting, he stopped being nice. He said if I didn't get the files, someone else would. He said the family had a window of opportunity and I was going to blow it. He made it sound like I was hurting Mom and Dad if I didn't do it, like I was letting them down. I felt a flash of nausea. It was a classic manipulation. Isolate the target, create urgency, weaponize their own inadequacy. And the threat? I asked. Did he threaten you? Evan looked down. He said he knew where you lived. He said he knew you lived alone. He said it would be a shame if you got involved in something messy because I was too scared to act. My blood ran cold. Miles Harker hadn't just used Evan. He had leveraged my safety to force Evan's hand, and Evan, in his twisted logic, had decided that stealing from me was the way to protect me. Or maybe that was just what he told himself to justify the payout. You should have told me. I said. I couldn't. Evan whispered. You would have said no. You always say no. I looked at my brother. I saw the weakness that had been cultivated in him like a garden. My parents had watered it with excuses. I had fertilized it with my own silence. I can't help you. Evan, I said, I signed the affidavit today. I am testifying. His face crumbled. Claire, no, please. You are my sister. I was your sister when you stole my password. I said, I was your sister when you let them frame me for credit fraud. Now I am just the witness. I turned and walked back to my car. He screamed my name, but I didn't look back. The next day, I received a text from an unknown number. Grocery store. Produce section. 20 minutes. It was Rena. I drove to the supermarket 3 towns over. Wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, I felt ridiculous, like I was acting out a spy movie. But the paranoia was a living thing now. I felt eyes on me everywhere. Rena was examining a pile of avocados. She didn't look at me when I pushed my cart next to hers. You look like hell, she murmured. Squeezing a fruit? Thanks, I said, pretending to look at the prices. Why did you want to meet? I did some digging, she said. Before they locked me out of the higher-level directories, Tracy is on a warpath. By the way, she is trying to scrub everything. What did you find? You know those templates you had? The ones in the basic work folder? Yes. They weren't just templates, Rena said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Northbridge started a program 6 months ago. Internal counterintelligence. They seeded random documents with unique identifiers, invisible characters, tracking pixels in the headers. I froze. A honey file. Exactly, Rena said. They knew the supply chain data was leaking, but they didn't know where, so they baited the hook. Your folder. Claire. Your folder was one of the baits. My mind raced. That meant Northbridge knew the exact moment the files were opened on an unauthorized device. They knew about the exfiltration Saturday night. Why didn't they stop it? I asked. If they knew Saturday night, why did they wait until Monday to flag me? Because they wanted to see where it went. Rena said. She finally looked at me, her dark eyes serious. They let the data walk out the door because they wanted to trace the recipient. You were the canary, Claire. They lowered you into the mine to see if you would drop dead. I gripped the handle of the cart. So Tracy knew? I asked. Tracy signed the authorization order for the honey files. Rena said, she knew your laptop was a tagged asset when you reported the breach. She wasn't surprised. She was calculating the blast radius. I felt a cold fury rising in my chest. Tracy had sat in that office, looking disappointed, talking about trust. All the while, she knew I had been used as live bait in a corporate mole hunt. "There is more," Rena said. "I traced the unique ID from your file. It didn't just go to a random server. It pinged a node that security has been watching for months. A network of consultants. This guy, Miles Harker? He isn't a recruiter. He is a bundler." "A bundler?" "He finds weak links. Little guys, brothers, cousins, interns. He gets them to steal small, fragmented pieces of data. Then he bundles it all together to sell to the big fish. Seacrest Meridian isn't the only buyer. He is selling to everyone. So Evan was just inventory." I said. "Evan was a disposable tool," Rena said. "And you? You were the convenient cover. The perfect patsy, clean record, quiet life. If the feds came knocking, Northbridge could point to you and say, 'Look, we found the rogue employee,' and close the case. They get to look compliant, and you get to go to prison." I looked at the avocados. They looked reptilian. "Thank you." "Rena," I said, "watch your back." "Claire." She said, "Northbridge isn't going to protect you. You are a liability now. If you prove you were set up, you prove their security is a joke. They want you guilty." She walked away toward the dairy aisle. I went home and sat in the dark. I thought about the machinery of it all. My family used me to solve their money problems. My company used me to catch a leak. I was just a cog, a friction point. A knock at the door startled me. I checked the peephole. It was Diane. She was holding a casserole dish covered in foil. The absurdity of it almost made me laugh. Tuna noodle casserole. The universal solvent for suburban grief. I opened the door but left the chain on. "What do you want?" "Mom?" I asked through the crack. "Claire, please," she said. Her eyes were red. "I brought you dinner. I know you are not eating. I am eating fine." I said, "Open the door," she pleaded. "I just want to see you. I want to apologize. I was hysterical the other day. I didn't mean what I said." I looked at her. I saw the desperation. I slid the chain off and opened the door. She came in and set the casserole on the table. She looked around the apartment, noticing the empty spaces where my electronics used to be. "Oh, Claire," she sighed. "Look at this. It is a mess. It is a crime scene." "Mom," I said. She turned to me. She reached out to touch my arm, but I stepped back. She flinched. "I am so sorry," she said, tears welling up. "I know we hurt you. I know Evan was wrong, but he is just a boy. Claire, he is not like you. He is not strong. He is 29. I said, "He is a man, and he committed a felony." I know," she said, wringing her hands, "but we can fix it. We just need to be on the same page." And there it was, the pivot. "What page is that?" I asked. She took a breath. She composed herself. The tears stopped as if she had turned a valve. I spoke to a lawyer. She said, "Bob Miller. He says that if you tell the investigators that you gave Evan the password, that you authorized him to use the machine, it changes things. It makes it a policy violation, not a theft. You might lose your job." Yes, but Northbridge probably wouldn't prosecute a family misunderstanding. And Evan wouldn't go to jail. I stared at her. I felt like I was looking at a stranger. "You want me to lie?" I said. "You want me to tell the FBI that I knowingly gave company secrets to a smuggler?" "Not a smuggler," Diane hissed. "To your brother. You just say you were helping him with his resume and you let him see some templates. You take the blame for being careless. That is all. You are the professional. Claire, you can handle a slap on the wrist. Evan will be crushed by this. You are asking me to destroy my life." I said, "To save him. I am asking you to save this family," she shouted. Her face twisted into something ugly. "You are so cold. Claire, you have always been so cold. You sit here in your perfect apartment with your perfect job and you judge us. You have never had to struggle. You have never had to beg." I laughed. It was a sharp, jagged sound. I never had to struggle because I worked. Mom, I worked while Evan played. I studied while Evan partied. And now you want me to pay the bill for his party. It is not about money. It is always about money. I said, did you know he was getting paid? Did you know about the $5,000? Diane froze. She looked away. You knew. I whispered. You knew he was selling the files. We needed it, she said, her voice small. Your father's pension. It is not enough. The house needs a roof. Evan said it was harmless. He said it was just templates. I walked to the door and opened it wide. Get out, I said. Claire, get out, I screamed. Take your casserole and get out. She left. She looked small and frail as she walked down the hallway. But I knew better now. She wasn't frail. She was a survivor, and she would eat her own young to survive. The next morning, I called Agent Navarro. I have information. I said, meet me, he said, not at the office. There's a diner on 4th Street, the Parkway Diner. I met him in a back booth. He looked tired. He had a coffee in front of him and a file folder. What do you have? He asked. I told him about Rena. I told him about the honey files. I told him about the bundling network. Navarro nodded slowly. He didn't look surprised. We suspected Northbridge was tagging the data. He said, it is standard counter intel, but we didn't know they were watching the exfiltration in real time. That complicates things. How? It means they let the data walk, he said. Which means they might be liable for the export violation if we can prove they could have stopped it. They are going to fight us, and they are going to fight you. I took a sip of water. My hand was steady. I want to help you catch Miles. I said. Navarro looked at me. Why? Because he destroyed my life. I said, and because if I give you Miles, you don't need to put me in prison to make your case. Navarro leaned back. He studied me. We can't find Miles. He said, he is a ghost. He used a burner phone, a spoofed email, and a VPN. He is gone. No. I said, he isn't gone. He is greedy. What do you mean? He didn't pay Evan. I said, he promised $5,000, but he ghosted him before the transfer. So, he thinks Evan is a loose end. I said, but he also thinks Evan is stupid and desperate. I looked Navarro in the eye. If Evan messages him, if Evan says he has more files, Miles might bite. Navarro shook his head. Evan is compromised. Miles knows we raided the house. It was in the local paper. Miles knows you raided the house. I said, he knows you took the devices, but he doesn't know what Evan told you. He doesn't know if Evan kept a backup. I leaned forward. Evan printed the spreadsheets. I said, the ones with the red marks. Miles wanted hard copies to teach Evan how to analyze them. What if we tell Miles that Evan printed the full data set, the restricted vendor list, the one with the names? And? Navarro asked. And we tell him that Evan hid the hard copies before the raid. I said, and he wants his $5,000, or he is going to give the papers to the feds. Navarro was silent. He tapped his finger on the table. It is risky, he said. If Miles smells a trap, he vanishes for good. He won't vanish, I said, because if the feds get the full list, his buyers get exposed. He has to clean it up. Navarro smiled. It was a thin, grim smile. You have a surprisingly criminal mind. Ms. Ward, I learned from my family. I said, we set it up that afternoon. Navarro brought me to a DHS field office, a nondescript building in an office park. We didn't use Evan. We couldn't trust him. We used a cloned version of Evan's phone. DHS tech specialists had restored the deleted Signal app from a cloud backup. I sat with Navarro and a technician. The technician typed, but I dictated the words. I had to sound like Evan. I had to sound desperate, entitled, and stupid. Message to Miles_H. Yo, you ghosted me. Not cool. We waited. 10 minutes. 20. Message to Miles_H. I know you saw the news. Feds took my laptop. They took my phone, but they didn't check the garage. Nothing. Message to Miles_H. I printed the full Q4 master list. The one with the darker gray headers. I have it in a box. I need my money. Man, or I'm handing it over to cut a deal. We waited. The cursor blinked. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then, 3 dots appeared. They pulsed. Once, twice. Reply from Miles_H. You are playing a dangerous game, kid. I looked at Navarro. He nodded. Keep going. Message to Miles_H. I am broke. My sister is going to jail. I need the cash. Tonight. Or I walk into the FBI office tomorrow morning. The response came almost instantly. Reply from Miles_H. Don't be an idiot. The sister was always the fall guy. That was the plan. If you talk, you ruin the narrative. I stared at the screen. The sister was always the fall guy. There it was. Confirmation. It wasn't just an opportunistic theft. It was a structured setup. Navarro pointed at the screen. We have him. He said to the tech, trace that hop. The tech typed furiously. He is bouncing through 3 proxies. Wait. I have a handshake. He is on a localized network. He is close. Reply from Miles_H. If you have the list, burn it. I will get you the crypto. But you have to prove you have it first. Send a photo of page 4, the one with the seaboard route. I looked at Navarro. We don't have page 4. I said, we can fake it. The tech said, I can generate a dummy sheet in 5 minutes. Do it, Navarro said. We waited while the tech worked. The room was electric. I felt a strange sense of dissociation. I was orchestrating a federal sting operation against a man who had destroyed my life. Using the persona of the brother who had betrayed me, the tech produced the image. It looked perfect, grainy, lit by a flash, just like a photo Evan would take in a panic. We sent it. Message to Miles_H. Image attachment money. Now. The response took 2 minutes. Reply from Miles_H. Good boy. Wallet address? We sent a DHS-controlled wallet address. Reply from Miles_H. Sent. Check it. Now burn the box. And Evan? If you mention my name again, the sister won't be the only one who has an accident. Navarro stood up. We got the transaction hash. We can trace the source wallet. We have him. He looked at me. You did good, Claire. That text, the sister was the fall guy, that is admissible. That corroborates your story. I felt a wave of relief so strong my knees buckled. I sat down in the chair. It is over? I asked. Navarro shook his head. No, we just identified the handler. Now we have to roll up the network, and we have to deal with Northbridge. But you have breathing room. I drove home that evening feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The sky was clear. The air felt breathable. I stopped at a red light. My new prepaid phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I picked it up, expecting a text from Leah or Navarro. It was an unknown number, not a short code, a local area code. I opened the message. You were never supposed to talk. I stared at the words. The light turned green. A car behind me honked. I didn't move. You were never supposed to talk. It wasn't Evan. Evan didn't know this number. It wasn't Miles. Miles thought he was talking to Evan. It wasn't Diane. I looked around the intersection. The cars passing by, the pedestrians. Someone knew I had this number. Someone knew I was working with the feds. Someone knew I wasn't playing the part of the silent, dutiful victim anymore. I drove the rest of the way home with my eyes constantly checking the mirrors. The relief was gone. The paranoia was back, colder and sharper than before. I wasn't just a suspect anymore. I wasn't just a witness. I was a target, and whoever sent that text wasn't in a server room in Russia. They were right here, watching. The raids happened on a Thursday, under a sky that threatened rain but never quite delivered. I didn't see them. I was sitting in my apartment, staring at a wall that felt increasingly like the perimeter of a cell. When Leah called me, "Turn on the news." She said, "Channel 4. I clicked the remote. The screen filled with shaky helicopter footage circling a warehouse district on the south side of East Briar. I knew that district. It was a graveyard of industry, rusted corrugated iron, broken windows, and weeds that grew through the cracks in the asphalt. But today, the gray landscape was punctuated by the sharp, flashing blue lights of federal vehicles. DHS just hit a storage facility registered to a subsidiary of Seacrest Meridian. Leah said, her voice tinny through the speaker. And they executed a simultaneous warrant at a residential property in Jersey. I watched the screen. Agents and windbreakers were carrying boxes out of a roll-up door. Is that the end of it? I asked. No, Leah said. That is just the evidence collection. They found the server. Claire, the physical server where the bundled data was being aggregated before export. And they found something else. What? They found a ledger. She said, a physical ledger. Miles Harker wasn't just digital. He kept receipts. I felt a jolt of vindication, but it was quickly swallowed by a wave of nausea. If they had receipts, they had names. Does it mention Evan? I asked. Leah hesitated. Claire, she said, Evan was taken into custody 40 minutes ago. The phone almost slipped from my hand. Custody? You mean arrested? I mean detained for formal questioning. She said, there were inconsistencies in his second statement. After you gave Navarro the text messages, well, the agents went back to him. He panicked. He tried to change his story again. They decided he was a flight risk, or at least an obstruction risk. I sat down on the edge of the sofa. My brother was in a federal holding cell. I tried to summon the anger that had sustained me for the last week, the fury at his betrayal, his selfishness, his willingness to let me take the fall. I wanted to feel righteous. Instead, I just felt sick. I remembered him as a 7-year-old, crying because he scraped his knee. I remembered the way he looked at me when our dad lost his job the first time, looking for reassurance that the world wasn't ending. I had spent my entire life building a shelter over him, and now I was the one who had handed the blueprints of that shelter to the demolition crew. Is he going to be charged? I asked. It depends on what he says in the next hour, Leah said, and it depends on what the forensic analysis of that packet shows. I am heading to the field office now. You should stay put. I can't stay put. I said, you have to. Claire, you are a witness. You cannot be seen anywhere near him right now. I hung up. I turned off the TV. I couldn't watch the boxes being carried out. Each box was a coffin for someone's career, someone's freedom. 2 hours later, Agent Navarro texted me. Come in. We need to review a finding. I drove to the field office. The atmosphere had changed since my last visit. It was buzzing with kinetic energy. Phones were ringing. Agents were walking briskly down hallways carrying evidence bags. The hunt was over. The dissection had begun. Navarro met me in a small conference room. He looked exhausted, his eyes rimmed with red, but he had the sharp, predatory focus of a man who had found the smoking gun. Sit down. Claire, he said. He placed a clear plastic evidence bag on the table. Inside was the stack of spreadsheets I had taken from Evan's car. The ones with the red ink. We ran handwriting analysis on the margin notes, Navarro said, and we ran a chemical analysis on the ink and the paper stock. And, I asked, it is Miles, isn't it? Navarro shook his head. No. He said, it isn't Miles, and it isn't Evan. I frowned. Then who wrote the notes? The handwriting matches a sample we pulled from a personnel file at a company called Vector Logistics. Navarro said, they are a third-party subcontractor that handles overflow shipping for Northbridge Lane. Specifically, the handwriting belongs to a shift supervisor named Greg Ludo. I stared at him. I don't know a Greg Ludo. We know, Navarro said. But here's the interesting part. Greg Ludo has been on the Northbridge vendor payroll for 3 years. He has access to the raw shipping data. He didn't need Evan to get these files. He already had access to the system. I tried to process this. If he had access, why did they need my password? Why did they need Evan to steal templates? Navarro leaned forward. Because Greg Ludo isn't the patsy, he said. You are. He tapped the plastic bag. This packet wasn't created by Evan to show Miles. It was created by Ludo and planted on Evan. Ludo gave these papers to Miles, and Miles gave them to Evan, telling him they were training materials. They wanted Evan to be found with them. They wanted Evan's fingerprints on them. They wanted a physical link between your brother and the restricted data. My mouth fell open. It was a prop. Exactly, Navarro said. The whole thing. The recruitment of your brother. The request for templates. The marked-up papers. It was theater. They needed a narrative to explain the leak that didn't lead back to their insider at Vector Logistics. So they built a story. The disgruntled sister and the desperate brother. It is a classic misdirection. They used your family's dysfunction as a smokescreen for a professional extraction operation. I felt cold all over. They hadn't just exploited us. They had scripted us. They had written a play, and we had recited our lines perfectly. So Evan didn't analyze anything. I whispered, Evan doesn't know how to analyze a shipping manifest. Navarro said dryly. He thought he was learning. In reality, he was just holding the murder weapon so the real killer could walk away. Does this clear him? I asked. Hope, fragile and dangerous, fluttered in my chest. No, Navarro said. He still stole your credentials. He still accepted a bribe. He still uploaded the files. He is guilty of conspiracy and unauthorized access. But he isn't the mastermind. He is just the useful idiot. And me? I asked. Navarro looked at me. His expression softened. Just a fraction. You are no longer a suspect. Claire, you are a victim of identity theft and corporate espionage. But that doesn't mean you are safe. Why? Because you are the only one who figured it out, he said. You are the loose thread that unraveled their sweater. And the people we are looking at now, the people above Miles, the people above Ludo, they don't like loose threads. He slid a document across the table. We are going to need you to testify, he said, not just against Evan, against Ludo, and potentially against Northbridge Lane Solutions. Northbridge? I asked. Why Northbridge? Because Vector Logistics is owned by a holding company that has a seat on the Northbridge Board of Directors. Navarro said, This rot goes deep, Claire, and you are standing right in the middle of it. I left the field office in a daze. I drove aimlessly for a while, unable to go back to the silence of my apartment. I ended up parking in a grocery store lot, watching people load bags into their cars. Normal people. People whose biggest worry was whether they remembered to buy milk. I envied them so much it hurt. My phone rang. It was Tracy Mullane. I stared at the screen. I hadn't spoken to her since the day she suspended me, since I learned she had used me as bait for her honeyfile trap. I answered. Hello, Tracy, Claire, she said. Her voice was warm, professional, the voice of a woman who managed crises for a living. I am glad you picked up. I wanted to check on you. Did you? I asked. Or did you want to see if the bait was still wiggling? There was a pause, a silence that acknowledged I knew. I see you have been talking to Rena, Tracy said, her tone cooling by 10 degrees. Rena has an active imagination. Rena told me about the tags. Tracy, I said, you knew. You knew my laptop was compromised on Saturday, and you let me walk into work on Monday just to see what would happen. We had to protect the firm. Claire, Tracy said, it wasn't personal. It was containment. It felt personal when the DHS raided my house. I said, I am calling with a proposal, Tracy said, pivoting effortlessly. The board has reviewed your file. Given the unique circumstances of the breach, and the fact that it appears to have originated from a family member, we are willing to offer a mutual separation agreement. Separation. I repeated, you are firing me. We are letting you resign, she corrected. With a full severance package, 6 months' salary, continued health benefits for a year, and a neutral reference letter, we will characterize your departure as a restructuring layoff. And the catch? I asked. A standard non-disclosure agreement. She said, you agree not to discuss the details of your departure, the internal security protocols of Northbridge, or the investigation involving your brother. You agree to hold the company harmless for any legal costs incurred. I laughed. It was a bitter, jagged sound. You want me to sign an NDA while I am a witness in a federal investigation? I asked. You want to buy my silence so I don't tell the DHS that Northbridge has a subcontractor sitting on its board who is running a smuggling ring? The line went dead silent. I didn't tell you that, Tracy said sharply. Who told you that? I figured it out. I lied. Listen to me. Claire, Tracy said, her voice dropping to a hiss. You are playing with things you do not understand. The offer is generous. It is a lifeline. If you refuse it, if you drag this out, the company will have no choice but to pursue civil damages against you for the loss of proprietary data. We will bankrupt you. We will take your apartment, your car, and your future. Take the money. Go away. Start over somewhere else. I looked at the grocery store. I looked at the people buying milk. I am not signing anything. Tracy, I said. Claire, and tell the board, I said, my voice shaking but loud, that if they want to sue me, they can get in line behind the Department of Homeland Security. I hung up. My hands were trembling. I had just turned down 6 months of salary and health insurance. I had just declared war on a corporation with a legal team larger than the population of my hometown. But I felt clean. For the first time in weeks, I felt clean. I drove home. When I got to my building, I saw a car I recognized. My mother's beige Camry was parked in a visitor spot. I considered keeping driving. I considered going to a hotel. But I was done running. I was done avoiding. I walked up to my apartment. Diane was sitting on the floor in the hallway, leaning against my door. She looked 20 years older than she had a week ago. Her hair was unkempt. Her eyes were swollen. When she saw me, she scrambled to her feet. Claire, she gasped. Thank God. I have been calling and calling. I changed my number. Mom, I said. I unlocked the door and walked in. She followed me. They have him. Claire, she sobbed. They have Evan. They are keeping him overnight. They say he might not get bail. I put my keys in the bowl. I know. I said, you have to do something. She said. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. You have to fix this. Fix it? I asked. How am I supposed to fix federal charges? Mom? Talk to them, she cried. Tell them you gave him permission. I stared at her. We had this conversation. She was like a broken record, skipping over the same desperate groove. Mom, I said, even if I lied, which I won't, it wouldn't matter. They know. They have the forensic evidence. They know about the subcontractor. They know about the setup. She blinked. Subcontractor? It doesn't matter. I said, what matters is that you are asking me to commit perjury. You are asking me to go to prison to save Evan from the consequences of his own greed. It wasn't greed. She shrieked. It was a mistake. He is your brother. He is a grown man. I shouted back. Diane recoiled. She looked at me with a mix of horror and hatred. You are enjoying this, she spat. You have always been jealous of him. You have always been jealous that he was the happy one, the free one, while you were just the worker, the boring one. Now you finally have power over him, and you are using it to destroy him. The words hit me like a physical slap. The boring one. That was how she saw me. Not as the responsible one, not as the successful one, but as the utility player. The one who kept the lights on so the star could shine. I looked at my mother. I saw the fear beneath the anger, the terror of a mother realizing she couldn't save her golden child, but I also saw the cruelty of it. I am not destroying him. Mom, I said quietly, I am just refusing to let him destroy me. You are selfish, she hissed. You are cold and selfish, and I don't know who you are anymore. I walked to the door and opened it. I am the person who pays the mortgage you live in. I said, I am the person who paid for Evan's car insurance last year when he couldn't. I am the person who has kept this family afloat for a decade. I pointed to the hallway. But I am done. Get out. She stared at me. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. She picked up her purse. If Evan goes to prison, she said, her voice shaking, I will never forgive you. I know, I said. She walked out. I closed the door. I locked the deadbolt. I slid the chain across. I slid down the door until I was sitting on the floor. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt a strange, hollow lightness in my chest. I had lost my job. I had lost my family. I had lost my safety. But I had found myself, and for the first time, I liked the person I found. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning. It was a preliminary evidentiary hearing, a procedural step to determine the admissibility of the seized data. I was subpoenaed to appear. I met Navarro outside the federal courthouse. It was a massive, imposing building of limestone and glass, designed to make you feel the weight of the state. Navarro looked grim. He pulled me aside. Near a concrete planter. Things are moving fast. He said, "We executed the warrant on Vector Logistics this morning. Greg Ludo is in the wind. We think he was tipped off." "Tipped off by who?" I asked. "We don't know," Navarro said, "but the timeline suggests the leak came from inside Northbridge. Someone warned him the second we subpoenaed the board records. Tracy, I thought, or someone above her." Navarro looked at me. "This changes your status. Claire, if Ludo is gone, you are the primary witness who can link the physical evidence to the conspiracy. You are the one who found the packet. You are the one who can testify to the chain of custody." "What does that mean?" "It means you are going to be under a lot of pressure." He said, "Northbridge's lawyers are going to come after your credibility. They are going to try to paint you as unstable, paranoid, vindictive against your family. They are going to use your mother's statements against you." "My mother gave a statement?" "She called the defense attorney for Miles Harker's network, who hasn't even been indicted yet, which tells you how organized they are, and offered a character reference for Evan. In that reference, she claimed you have a history of emotional volatility." I closed my eyes. Of course she did. She was scorching the earth. "I can handle it." I said. Navarro nodded. "I think you can. But listen to me. This investigation is about to widen. We are looking at RICO charges for the Northbridge executives involved. If we go down that road, you are going to be testifying against billionaires, not just drug dealers. That has consequences that aren't written in any contract." "Like what?" "Like never working in this industry again," he said. "Like being blacklisted. Like looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life." I looked at the courthouse. I looked at the American flag snapping in the wind. "I am already blacklisted." "Navarro," I said, "I am already looking over my shoulder. The only way out is through." He squeezed my shoulder. "Good luck in there." The hearing was a blur of legalese and procedural arguments. I sat in the back, watching men in expensive suits argue about the validity of digital timestamps. I saw Evan. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked thin, pale, and terrified. He didn't look at me. When it was over, I walked out the side exit. I needed air. The atmosphere inside the courtroom had been stifling. I stood on the sidewalk, watching the traffic. The city felt busy, indifferent. "Ms. Ward?" I turned. A man was standing a few feet away. He was dressed in a suit that was sharper, darker, and more expensive than anything I had seen in the courtroom. He had silver hair and a face that was pleasantly forgettable. "Yes," I said, stepping back. "My name is Mr. Sterling," he said. He didn't offer a hand. "I work for a risk advisory firm. We have been monitoring the situation with Northbridge. I am not interested." I said. I turned to walk away. "You don't understand what you are standing in front of," he said. His voice was quiet. But it stopped me cold. I turned back. "Excuse me? You think this is about a smuggling ring?" He said. "You think it is about chips and sensors. You think you have found the bottom." He reached into his pocket. I tensed, ready to run. He pulled out a business card. He held it out to me. "We can help you navigate the next phase," he said, "because the next phase isn't legal. It is structural." "What does that mean?" "It means that the people you are about to testify against aren't just criminals, Ms. Ward. They are architects, and they don't like it when people touch the blueprints." He pressed the card into my hand. "Call the number if you want to survive the renovation," he said. He turned and walked away. He got into a black sedan that was idling at the curb. The car pulled away and disappeared into the traffic. I looked down at the card. It was heavy, cream-colored cardstock. It had no company name, just a phone number and a logo embossed in the center. I stared at the logo. It was a stylized geometric shape, a hexagon with a line running through it. I knew that shape. I had seen it before. not on a business card, not on a billboard. I had seen it on the leaked PDFs. When I had opened the ratecard_summary.xlsx that Saturday night, the file that Evan had stolen, the file that had started this entire nightmare, I had noticed a faint gray watermark in the background of the print preview. I had assumed it was a formatting glitch, a ghost image, but it wasn't a glitch. It was this logo. The risk advisory firm wasn't an outside party observing the chaos. They were inside the files from the beginning. They weren't just advising on the risk. They were the ones creating it. The network didn't just reach into Northbridge. It reached into the very structure of the data itself. I stood there on the sidewalk, the card burning my palm. Navarro had said the investigation was widening. He had no idea. I looked up at the sky. It was finally raining, a cold, steady drizzle that washed over the city, turning the gray pavement black. I put the card in my pocket. I buttoned my coat. I wasn't the boring compliance analyst anymore. I wasn't the dutiful daughter. I wasn't the victim. I was the woman who held the map to the labyrinth. And I was going to burn it down, even if I was still inside. Thank you for listening to Claire's story. This has been a journey into the terrifying fragility of the lives we build for ourselves, how quickly safe can become suspect, and how the people we trust the most can be the ones who open the door to our destruction. I would love to hear your thoughts on this ending. Do you think Claire made the right choice in cutting off her family? Do you believe she can survive the renovation that Mr. Sterling warned her about? Please leave a comment below telling me where you are listening from. I am always fascinated to see how far these stories travel. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into family betrayal and corporate espionage, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. There are many more secrets waiting to be uncovered. Stay safe, watch your data, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous files are the ones labeled basic.